This week's podcast is brought to you by the Bowhunters Challenge. Go to bowhunterschallenge.com to enter into the draw to win the Hoyt Ventum 33. We're in the final weeks of you actually being able to go into the draw for that one. So if you want to become a better bow hunter, a better human being all round, focusing on nutrition, diet and lifestyle, then by all means head across to bowhunterschallenge.com.
Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bowhunter. I'm your host, Matty, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands. Searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting.
Team, what is up? This week's episode, I am very excited to bring you Matt Tripet from the Fly program. I'm not going to talk too much about it at the front here. I just think this episode is really insightful and really good for anyone who has ever struggled with any sort of mental hardship or is currently struggling with any sort of mental hardship. So, guys, I hope you really enjoy this one. Please reach out to Matt. It's at matt.tripet on Instagram and show him the love for the podcast he did today. Thanks heaps, team. Guys, welcome back to Becoming a Bow Hunter. Excited to be sitting here with Matt Tripet. Matt, welcome, mate.
Hey, how are we?
Good, dude, good. So, I've actually taken a little bit of a break from podcasting, so this is a nice little check back in. It's been a while, and so it's nice to actually have a guest I'm excited to talk to and excited to kind of share your message as well with the crew. I think realistically, I've always hit and said that bow hunting is it's so much more than hunting. It's really about the meditative side, the release side, the side that when you go out in nature and you get to connect with that nature, the things that you see, the people that you meet along the way. It's really a bigger picture than what you would think as a hunter from an outside world, looking in on the hunters essentially. So I'm really quite excited to kind of share your story, and I've only heard snippets of it, so I'm even more excited to really dive into it a bit deeper. So I think to give you a bit more of a rundown, you're the founder and the CEO of the Fly program, which is a program that you designed to help with men's mental health. And I mean, realistically, you're living down in the Snowy Mountains area. You've been down there for the last 12 years, and I'm going to let you kind of take the reins from there and actually give us a bit more insight. Let's maybe start, Matt, with where your outdoor adventure / hunting life kind of begun.
Thanks, mate. My outdoors, or my passion for the outdoors, was really born through trout fishing as a young kid, and hunting went hand in hand with that. I was, really passionate about getting into the outdoors and using firearms as a young kid. I had one problem as a young guy though, because my father was a Vietnam veteran. He was in 3RA and 9RA, and he was in heavy, combat roles for 12 months. When he left Vietnam, he had some pretty strong PTSD and had a mental breakdown at the age of 55. So firearms was something that wasn't commonly around the household. Yeah. But I was able to sort of live those dreams through my older brother. And we were able to go trout fishing, but had a really strong connection with my older brother, walking the mountains trying to find deer and pigs and things like that. And I was able to sort of live those experiences until my adult years, hunting with a rifle. So that's where the passion really grew. I've loved coastal environments, but the mountains has always been a place where I've called home. I grew up in the northwest New South Wales, New England region. I hunted up around, for those of you who are listeners, hunt around the Nundle State Forest, Barrington Tops, all of those areas. I was hunting a lot on an R license and also on a lot of private property. So really very, very fortunate to enjoy that, but that really shaped my love for, moving down south and continuing that lifestyle. on steroids, I suppose, here in the Snowies, where fly fishing has, it's a major part of my life, and professionally and philanthropically. But bow hunting is my expression in the mountains, probably more so than ever. And I find myself more and more picking up the bow than heading out in the mountains with a rifle, and just find so many synergies between fly fishing and bow hunting. It's very process driven. The successes are learnt through small, intimate experiences that can sometimes be hard to articulate through words. Certainly a challenge that has left my head in my hands more so than my hands above my head, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, man.
Yeah.
I think realistically, everyone who's listening along that has gone out and actually already been amongst the animals and been bow hunting, you'll definitely relate to that. When did you first pick up a fly rod?
I first picked up a fly rod when I was about 10 years old. And I used to go on a fishing camp up at Walker as a young guy. And it was really designed at young blokes or youth. And it was actually run by an organisation called Scripture Union. It's sort of like a church group who did fishing camps for blokes. And I went along to that, and I just felt a strong affinity with seeing a dry fly floating down the water, and also the process of casting. It wasn't, everything had to be very, very deliberate. I really connected with it. My family all threw selters and did very, very well catching a lot of trout. And it took me a couple of years to catch my first fish. That was hundreds of trips, the amount of times that we'd go out. But when it all happened, it was just a massive elation that I've never, ever felt. And I still feel those feelings now. It's freezing cold, my skinny little legs in the water, and this fish took a little caddisfly that was so poorly presented. But that moment is just like electricity going through my veins, and that's what sends me out time and time again. So I've dedicated myself, I'm 40 now, so I've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's so good. And they're the moments that obviously we long for when we go out in the bush, but at the same time, the 99 times you went beforehand, right? They're also what we long for, right? I went out for a trip just recently, and we walked for 3 days straight and didn't see anything till the very last morning when we came across a mob of deer. And we're an unsuccessful hunt that time, but you walk away from those weekends just going like, you're hungry to get out and see more, but you're very appreciative of what you've got, like the lifestyle that you get to live, and the I guess the ease, or I want to say like the ease of life in general, compared to when you're going out and you're trekking out hard and you're doing hard yakka days. Essentially, it really makes you appreciate, hold up, we've really got it so simple.
Absolutely. I think it's hunting, particularly with a bow, and I love rifle hunting still, but hunting with a bow and fly fishing, they are just such process-driven activities. And as I said earlier, it's hard to articulate sometimes some of the learnings that we gain from the outdoors, whether it be around our mindset and resilience, or through to some of the physical, practical elements of hunting. I try to look at my failures as learning experiences, or how I may have articulated failures previously into learning experiences that then, ultimately set you up for success in the future. And how we measure that success, whether it be a deer on the ground or it be, a successful stalk without a deer. There's just so many levels of success and enjoyment to be had in the outdoors, and it's living in the real, it's living in the present, it's the here and now. It's not living through a screen, or it's the real deal. It's legit.
Takes away that instant gratification that we're so used to nowadays.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when did fly fishing become a professional gig for you?
Yeah, sure. So my professional background, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school, but I finished a degree in education, went down the teaching path in PDH, PE and outdoor education, all things outdoors, and really, really loved elements of teaching. But my wife and I were given a pretty awesome opportunity to take a job in the New South Wales Snowies where I was sort of taking an executive management role in developing adventure tourism business out of one of the resorts down here, and I took that job, and it was a 1-year commitment. That 1-year commitment has turned into nearly 12 years now, and it's certainly our place where we call home. It was in that period of time, provided with some of the best fly fishing in the world, certainly in mainland Australia. I really fell with a passion with fly fishing, and not only enjoying it for myself on another level, but teaching and introducing people to fly fishing really became a big passion of mine as well. And so I was in that period of time. I also did my International Federation of Fly Fishers. It's a governing body of a very high standards of teaching. And I did my certified casting program, which is about a couple of years. You've got to dedicate yourself to training every day for a couple of hours every day, just casting. Oh, wow. And I achieved that award and used that award to help challenge myself and become a better teacher. And it's been something I've really enjoyed, and find myself doing it in my professional life now for a large part of the time, whether it be philanthropically in a voluntary capacity or through a professional standpoint.
Yeah, that's incredible. One of my biggest regrets in life was that I had a mentor when I was younger. He was actually my futsal coach, and we as a team were really quite competitive and won like Queensland Cups and stuff like that. And kind of we'd go away for trips quite a lot. And the coach, who was also the mentor that I'm talking about, he was really heavily into fly fishing. And he always said, Matty, I want to teach you fly fishing. And I was always like, yes, let's make it happen. But we just never ever made it happen, especially as I grew older. I didn't reconnect with him at all. And he actually passed last year, was when he passed away. And it was really one of those moments of like, oh, fuck, I really should have actually reconnected and got involved in that. I've never actually done fly fishing. All I did was casting his rod out in his front lawn with his son just a few times. He'd take us out there. He's like, no, like, yeah, it's all in the wrist movement, and he'd get me to kind of change things around. And I was really snapping it. I remember just whipping it, and I would have been grade 5 or 6 or something at the time. And it was just really like a whip rather than making it smooth motion. And I mean, that was all of probably 10, 15, 20 minutes playing around with it. And hearing you say like, yes, I spent a few years just dedicated to hours of day just practicing it, just makes it sound like it's I knew there was obviously a lot of technique to it, but it sounds like it's really actually quite complex.
It is but it shouldn't be complex it's complex at a very high level. There's casts, and there's also fishing casts. And a large part of my client base are people who are really pretty well time poor people that don't have the privilege or the opportunity to be in the outdoors because of professional life or family, etc. So you can be very, very successful fly fishing with fairly limited skill set. I think and that's really, really important to say. It shouldn't be a daunting task, but the one thing I say to every client is that, and I think it's the same, well, it's absolutely the same with hunting with a bow and with a rifle, however you want to look at it. As soon as you pick up that fly rod and you engage with it for the first time, you're stepping onto a learning curve that I'm on as well. And that learning curve is endless. The more and more I understand about fly fishing, more and more I understand about bow hunting, the more I'm triggered into wanting to get outside and do more. It's just such an awesome revelation where there's just this endless desire to be in the outdoors. And you talked about instant gratification earlier, and I'm just, we live in a society and live in a world that is just so fueled by needing to get gratification quickly, whether it be through a like on social media or it be a pat on the back for something. These are activities where are just the polar opposite. And it's something that's really refreshing and engaging. Doesn't matter if you've been a a fly fisher or a bow hunter for a week, or you've been a fly fisher or a bow hunter for, for 20, 30, 40 years, the experiences that you can gain through those activities, regardless of where you are on the spectrum, do not need to be compared to anybody. And they're your lived experiences. You're making an investment in yourself. And I think the experience, I really want to focus people's mindsets on the experience rather than the technical nous of either activity to encourage people into the outdoors and have real experiences.
Yeah, definitely. There's actually every night we either read a story to my daughter or we'll just tell her a story off like verbatim or whatever. And I've often just recently been talking a lot about our dog, making up stories about our dog when she was younger. And then last night my wife goes, well, why don't you tell her a hunting story? I'm like, oh, okay. So I got in and I was telling her a hunting story. And it was funny. My wife was over listening. She's like, hold up, did that actually happen? I'm like, yeah. And then I'd talk a little bit more. She's like, so what did the goats do? How do they work? And she was just so intrigued to hear how much detail I was able to kind of apply to the story. And it's those moments are what I think a lot of bow hunters actually live for, is just getting out and seeing the animals. It doesn't necessarily matter walking away with meat. Like, yes, that's another part of it, but being able to be up close and personal and involved with nature. And like you said before, be present in that moment and not have 100 different distractions going on because you're working, you're meant to be focusing on this and you've got your family pulling you this way. And then there's a stress of money or stress of life or whatever that's pulling you in all the different directions. You're literally in that moment and it's literally all you're thinking about at that time. And it was quite kind of interesting to see how much it actually excited my wife last night just talking about it. And we were doing the different noises with my daughter, like, so I saw the goat and what sounds the goat make? She meh, and did a little sounds with it and everything. It was just, it was really cool to kind of, I think it's nice to be able to paint that picture for her from such a young age rather than it be introduced at 20 years old as a brutal or a murderous thing, rather than it being like, oh, hold up, this has actually been a part of what ancestrally we've had for our whole lives.
Absolutely. Talking about, I'm a father of 4 beautiful kids. My wife and I sort of married my wife out of high school, and we've got 4 beautiful kids. My eldest is a daughter; she's 13. Our youngest is a boy who's 3. And 3 of the 4 kids all have their own bows. Mm-hmm. They all have their own fly rods, and I expose them to that environment regularly. Yep. And I think we've got to be really deliberate about that with our children, mm-hmm. giving them small steps into a world where they can also discover the wonderful joys that we can have as hunters and as outdoors people, mold and shape them. And that's certainly what my family did for me as a young guy. And it's a reminder to me that, we really have to work hard at that. But we had a beautiful family experience not long ago where I just shot a fallow deer and brought it home. And the kids weren't with me on this trip. But when we got home the next day, my daughter is outside, 13-year-old daughter. She's outside. She's skinning the deer for me. Mm-hmm. I've got another boy who's, breaking down muscle groups. And that night we're sending a bunch of meat through the sausage maker, making sausages. And the whole family's involved, including our Whistler dog that's sitting at the end just eating up all the scraps. But,
best job.
It is something that is really uniting. And as you said, it's a part of our DNA. It's a part of our ancestral DNA. It's part of who we are as people. And life, through its conveniences, are moving us further and further away from that. So we've got to be really deliberate in telling those stories and sharing those stories because it would just be such a horrific loss. I'd be devastated if my children didn't know about the outdoors through the eyes of being a hunter or a fisher.
Yeah, definitely. Given the current state of the world where we've actually had hunting privileges and fishing privileges taken away at times, I think it's really been a major effect on those that do use as an outlet. All of a sudden they've had it stripped and they can't use it as an outlet, and they've been forced into their homes to be like, okay, we'll deal with it. You've got no other choice. You just have to deal with it. I think for the first time ever, we've been more restricted than ever before, and it's been an interesting process. And I think that's unfortunately why we have seen a very high escalation in suicides, and we have seen realistically a massive increase in mental health. This is unlike any time we've seen before, but what I would like to kind of transition into more so, firstly, I'd like to say if anyone is in that state and they are actually really struggling, please reach out. Like, I'm very happy to be a soundboard to talk to anyone. Yeah, I definitely mean that. That's a very genuine statement when I say that. But what I actually do want to transition into more so is about the story behind the Fly program. How did that kind of start, and what was the thought and transition for that?
Yeah, sure. So, my role in the mountains was obviously in a fairly busy sort of management role, running a business where we had 20 different things happening at once, sort of, and I was really enjoying that opportunity. It was an opportunity that really challenged me professionally, and I learned a lot in that period of time. But about 3 years into the process, 2013, I was called by my father-in-law, Noel, and my wife is a farmer's girl. She's off the land, and her dad is just the most beautiful soul, but he's a man of few words. And I could just tell straight away that something was pretty significantly wrong. And my wife's brother, Justin, without us having any understanding or knowledge of any mental health challenges that he was facing, but he'd committed suicide in 2013. And I had to, pass that information on to my wife, which was, incredibly challenging. And I think when, and there'll be a lot of people, a lot of your listeners who will have been impacted by mental health and suicide, within this listening group, half of our population are going to be indirectly or directly impacted by mental health challenges at some point in our lives, whether it be us directly or a brother or a sister or a partner or a parent. And at some stage, directly or indirectly, the challenges of losing a loved one to suicide is going to be very real for a lot of us as well. The thing I found really challenging was, why didn't Justin, feel like he could reach out and talk? And I think, very early on that there can be a lot of anger, but probably from our perspective, there's just a lot of questions that were unanswered, and lots of them are unanswered today. But I think after a lot of the raw bitterness of the pain of suicide, it didn't ever subside, and it certainly doesn't subside. But it does put purpose into your heart, and the way in which I saw that purpose take life was, using the outdoors or creating a space and my professional skill set of fly fishing to open up pathways for Aussie blokes to find respite and reprieve through the outdoors. So I contacted a number of big not-for-profits, and I just said, listen, guys, I've got this skill set. I put together a business model that they would be able to see and on a voluntary capacity, and run retreats for blokes who need to get into the outdoors and have some real organic experiences. And I wanted to use fly fishing as that means to be able to engage people with the here and now, and probably find a bit of perspective on some of the challenges that they're facing in their life. And it was really difficult to get anything off the ground. So I thought the best thing for me to do then is to surround myself with a really good professional group. And I sat around a board table in Canberra at Screencraft Media. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I had 5 or 6 people around me, and I said, guys, this is my vision, this is my mission, and I can't do it on my own. I need people to help out. And we have people in accounting, we have people in business, we have people in marketing, and 6 months later, I look back at that meeting, and I was the founder of an organisation that was just about to run its first community program as a national health promotion charity in the community. And was just pinching myself. I thought, I can't believe that we've just pulled this off. And in a very, very short period of time, we realised that our focus has to be in that early intervention prevention space, what we like to call mental fitness. There's so much on the crisis intervention, so much on the space around when people are standing on the edge. There's nothing happening right at the very, very start. So we wanted to use the outdoors as a mechanism or as a pathway to engage with Aussie males who statistically have really, really poor help-seeking rates. Women are great communicators. As blokes, we're typically pretty poor. And we like to sort of keep things to ourselves to protect those people around us from their suffering in us, but also wanting to be sort of capable of being able to manage our own health as well. So, the Fly program is born, and over 5 years, we turned 5 this year, and we will have seen, we've directly seen hundreds of guys go through retreats with us at a 4-day-long retreat. More broadly, we've been in we've connected with every state and territory across Australia, and indirectly, the community that we have, or the family that we have at the Fly program, has grown in the thousands. We will have seen nearly just over $1 million later this year go through our community programs. When my wife and I were sort of the first people to make a donation to the cause of $1,000, it's pretty heartwarming to know that we've just had such a big impact on the lives of people in our community, from firefighters through to full-time dads, through to, ex-veterans, to bricklayers, to barristers, all, focused on delivering life-changing experiences through the outdoors, through something as simple as standing in a stream, holding fur and feathers on a hook and learning how to throw it in front of a trout. It's just such a powerful, engaging environment where we can connect with people as people, put aside all the bullshit and all the distractions that we can face in the world of phones and emails and a lot of the things that just preoccupy our time constantly. There needs to be a time of reset and recharge, and we need to learn to be more present in our lives. So out of the whole COVID world, I suppose there's been incredible challenges for lots and lots of people in our community. Financially, families living together who aren't used to living together, so there's a lot of family stresses. But on the flip side too, there's so many silver linings. And I say that respectfully. I understand that there'll be listeners here who have had a really, really tough time of it. But the silver linings are, and it's so heartwarming to see mums and dads sitting in backyards cooking sausages on a little campfire, through to tents being pitched in front yards, through to people sitting down and doing mission planning for a camping trip that's in the next neighbourhood. All of these things are sort of connecting us to our roots again. And we've got a great opportunity to use this friction, this time in life right now, as an opportunity to, to prioritise the things that we're really important, things that are in line with our values as people, and be really deliberate in our decisions. We've never been more socially connected with the world through social media. But I'll say in the same line that we have never been more socially disconnected with the world around us through social media.
Yeah.
But use this as an opportunity to connect with one another on levels that has meaning and substance. And there's silver linings all through this, but we've just got to go looking for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we just on the weekend had a talk just like via Zoom with some friends down in Canberra they're really having a rough time right now. And it was just amazing to see how much a conversation can change someone. Like, we were talking to them for 2 hours. We just had dinner together over Zoom. And by the end of the conversation, they were all smiles. They were laughing. They were happy again. And it was just that quick change of perspective that really transitioned that for them. When you talk about a 4-day getaway, obviously there's some massive boulders you can move in that time. What are kind of some of the stories you guys are seeing throughout a 4-day experience with people?
I think, mate, the stories there's so many stories. Probably one story that, really sits with me, and it's life-changing for me. And I've experienced, like, out of all of the programs that we've run, I've been directly involved with every single one of them. There's one story of a guy from country Victoria, and he was in the ex-services, like he was in special ops in Afghanistan, and was retired from his job due to injury, physical injury, and mental health injuries from his time in service. His behaviour coming into the program, and I shook his hand. He couldn't even look at me in the eye, and his handshake was like a wet fish. Like it was just really, really weak. And as the program evolved, he became more and more involved. And fly fishing for him has just been this incredible sort of savior for him in so many ways. And he dedicates his life professionally to it now. It's just so extraordinary. But his sleeping habits was, to sleep on the bedroom floor, next to the wife's bed. He wouldn't be in the bed, and he'd be sleeping next to the window to protect his family, because that was his instinct, to sleep on the floor, no comfort, and be next to the entry in and entry out of their bedroom. There's so many stories like that that he shared with me, but he's now got two beautiful children. He now is going around the world, teaching people how to fly fish. He's COVID, as long as COVID allows him to, but he's off to Montana in a few months' time, and doing drift boats down some of the big rivers over there. He's full-time Victoria on the Goulburn Valley river system. He's just this most extraordinary human being, and when you see him face to face, he's just got these incredible, strong and endearing eyes that it's just a massive transformation. When he shakes your hand, it's full of purpose and passion. And my dear brother Lockie, mate, we've had so many conversations over this, and he wouldn't mind me sharing. He puts a lot of purpose in my heart every single day, and is a reminder that everybody out there have a story, and your story may not be as spectacular as falling off the back of a Humvee at 80 k's an hour and nearly breaking your back like it did for him. Your story might be, I'm struggling to pay the bills, laying bricks as an apprentice, and dealing with maybe some things you might think are a little less significant. But the reality is, your story is significant, and your story is as significant as the person who you are. And it's really important that as people and as a community that we're aware that not everybody's stories are easygoing, and at some point in life we're all going to face friction of one sort or another, and there's a wonderful purpose that can be taken out of that, because we can use that to mold and shape who we are as people with resilience, but also understanding our core values around whether it be around love or your family and things like that. There's just this extraordinary opportunity for all of us to use friction in life as a means to better ourselves as people, and that's what we focus on at the Fly program, is using the friction that we face in life, and using that as an opportunity for us to mold and shape who we are tomorrow, and creating ambassadors of men who are connected to things that might be unpopular in male culture, around gratitude, around foundations, around love, around respect, around investing our time in other people, not in ourselves. Like there's just so many things that by popular culture are a bit unpopular, but we try to use the outdoors as a powerful mechanism to engage that, to share those experiences.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We for the last 6 years I've run health retreats, and on the health retreats, like, we'll really delve deep into like mindset, and we'll do a lot of meditation and stuff with people. And one of the most profound things we see make the biggest difference for people is an ice bath, because what we do is we get these people of all shapes, all sizes, all ethnicities to come in, and they jump into this ice pit for 3 minutes at minimum is what I give them. And we teach them the protocols around it. We teach them how to breathe and how to calm down their anxiety levels and really deal with, or how to use their breath to help deal with stress. And you see people who are just like, there's no way I'm jumping to this. We had I think she was 67-year-old lady, and she's like, there's no way I can do this. Like, this would, I'll give it a shot, but I don't see it going well at all. And jumped in, was in there for the whole 3 minutes just because she just overcame that little bit of fear that was right there and then. And it was just so empowering to see that sort of situation. We had another lady who was, she actually got the cold and flu, the flu jab a few years ago, and suffered a neurolingual, like a neuro disease essentially from it. So she now shakes constantly. So she constantly has, I think she has something up to like 50 seizures a day since having it, and there was like this a complete life change for her. Like she went from being a mum of two that was working every day to being a mum of two that was on a disability pension. And she came along to it. And when she hopped in the ice, it pretty much exaggerated everything that was going on for her. So her movements became really big and rigid, and people thought that she was having a seizure in the moment, but she actually wasn't. She wasn't at all. She was fine. She was just trying to deal with it, and it was the way that her body was dealing with it. And it was one of those big heartwarming moments where you see, like I looked around because I'm trying to talk to her about how to breathe properly. And I'm just sitting there in her ear. And I looked around and there was 5 or 6 other women on watching that were just eyes just tearing, like just water streaming down their face because you could see they were so empowered by what this lady had decided to do. I almost feel like moments like that can be really just life-changing for individuals, especially, and this might be, it's different, but it's the exact same, I can imagine, as to what you can see when you take a guy out there for 4 days, and all of a sudden they start to open up, you start to talk together, you really build a relationship. I mean, it's funny because some of the guys I've gone out hunting with, I've barely known them really for most of my life, yet I feel like I know them so well. Do you kind of feel like those relationships just build and bond so easily because of the wilderness?
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt. We very, very quickly we very quickly sort of turn the phrase from friendship into a brotherhood, and I know that can be overused, but the guys who go through the program, we certainly see each other as family, and the accountability that comes from that is extraordinary post program. But one of the first things, like you were just talking about through your wellness and fitness retreats, one of the very, very first things that we do is we've got, 8 to 10 guys from all over Australia standing in front of one another, not knowing anybody. Mm. And the very, very first activity that we do in all shapes and sizes is I strip off into my undies and I walk out into the Thredbo River, which is typically around sort of May time, around between 4 and 6 degrees. And we do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Is that we create a sense of vulnerability straight away. And we can use vulnerability if you're finding yourself vulnerable in space. And I think I find myself vulnerable all the time in the outdoors, whether it be this deer that I shot the other week. I'd just done a full day, probably sort of walked out about 17, 18 Ks. I was pretty tired. I had a pack on all day too. And I got a deer right probably half an hour before sundown, and it was a nice, clean, ethical, good kill. But then I had a serious job, and then the rain started, and being here in the snowies, probably wind chill was sort of down around +1, +2, and I still had an hour and a half of cleaning out a deer and hiking it back out, and I was as vulnerable as they come. Like I was borderline in tears. I was that exhausted, but also elated with the fact that I was able to feed my family. Not saying I need to go shoot a deer to feed my family, but just that sensation of, being able to provide for the kids and for the wife with really beautiful meat is just something that's really, really, I find really, really special. Mm-hmm. But where we can use vulnerability, and rather than putting a stigma around it and your struggles around having a hard time, we can use that to build armor on us as people. And vulnerability not only impacts yourself, but it impacts the people around you. You're talking about your female client who is, appearing to have a fit in the water. It's not only impacting her as an individual, but her efforts and her vulnerability and the strength that is born through that vulnerability is equipping with the people around her as well. Mm-hmm. And it is help shaping people as a community who are building values around, real experiences that are happening in front of them. And I'm sure that's not the only time that story has been shared by yourself, but the other people exposed to that group have shared it with people, and they've shared it. Let's use vulnerability as an incredible tool to build strength and integrity in our community.
Yeah. There's for a long time we ran a health and fitness podcast, and we don't anymore. But I interviewed a guy called JP Sears, who is a redhead guy from the States. You might have seen some of his parody videos. He's a very funny guy. But when we interviewed him, his whole thing is pretty much around breaking through your comfort coffin. So he talks a lot about like life in general. We're set up to have convenient things. Like life is just set to be so cushy. And we go through our day-to-day routines, and humans are people of like we're creatures of habit, and realistically we like to do the same thing day in, day out, and breaking outside of that is breaking outside of your comfort coffin. And when you go through that is when one of the times that you feel the most discomfort, yet it's also where you grow the most as an individual. So going through exactly what we've just talked about with things like the ice bath, it really breaks it's like a pattern disrupt to what you're used to doing. And that's where you can see so much growth. It's like when we go out in the bush and we're doing something that we don't do day in, day out, and you really do see that growth, even if you're not actually achieving anything in the sense of actually getting out and doing the job of getting a deer down, but you're still out in the bush and you're still achieving a lot by even being out there with nature. And I just always think that that's such an interesting thing, because so many people see hardship as a negative thing, whereas realistically you don't learn anything without failure. And so that failure side of things, really, it just grows people. And so getting out your comfort coffin is one of the best things you can do. I personally believe, and I think realistically it's been shown for so long, so doing things to break your little pattern disrupt, to give you a pattern disrupt constantly, so break you out of your routine is just, it's so important and so valuable, I think. And something that we should probably practice a little bit more, especially in our younger generations, because we're seeing kids that are growing up with this instant gratification of the phones, and they don't, like, all of a sudden an ad pops up on YouTube and they don't even have to watch the ad. Like, you don't even have that experience of running out to the kitchen for the minute while the ads are on trying to get your food and then running back in to watch TV or anything like that. Not that that's even a hardship, but you don't have those, life is just so convenient for our young ones. And so creating those forms of hardship so they're not just used to having everything, I guess, handed to them on a silver platter is just so important.
Absolutely. I think, behaviourally as people, we walk the path of, least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be told to do that. And I think, like you said, that it's really, really important that we challenge ourselves, and challenge ourselves for making healthy decisions for ourselves, whether it be, put your phone out on the kitchen bench and not next to your bedside table. So the first thing that you see in the morning is, the lights of your phone when you're checking Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. So, disrupt your daily habits. Are you getting up out of bed at 8:30, 9:30, 10:30? COVID, I don't need to go to work. I'm going to bed at 2 o'clock and I'm getting up at 10 o'clock. Shift that habit around and, make sure that 5:30 is the time that you're up. You've exercised your body before you've seen your phone. And get a good night's sleep. Think about the things you're throwing into your body as the fuel. Is it out of convenience? Is it out of packages? Or is it, whole and organic? Is it good for your body? We can be making a lot of these small little decisions that can create a bit of friction or create a bit of difficulty in our day, just with little tiny decisions. It doesn't have to be walking up Mount Everest.
No, exactly.
I'd certainly challenge everybody on this podcast and, to be thinking about their daily habits. Look at yourself in the mirror next time and think, where am I taking shortcuts? Mm-hmm. I can tell you now, I'm on a big fitness kick at the moment. I try to keep pretty fit and healthy all the time, but I'm on a pretty rigorous program at the moment. I've got all of these things written up on my mirror in my bathroom. That's from having listened to David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me several times, the story, and quite an inspiring story. But a lot of the things that I struggle with are written in front of me on my bathroom mirror. My wife has got to look at all this writing on the mirror, but that's okay. It keeps me accountable to maybe, making some good, healthy decisions every day.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a Mark Twain quote, and it's something along the lines of, your diet's not only the food you eat, it's also the things you listen to, the people you see, the words you hear, the stories you read. Like, it's everything that you consume, and I think that's such a valuable thing, especially right now. For the last 2 years, we've seen nothing but fear. It's just been drummed into everyone. So one of the most empowering things I think you can do right now is switch off the news. Like, get away from that regular day-to-day check-in that you've potentially been doing, and that stuff is really not great for your mental state at all. So stepping away from that, like, don't worry, you'll hear the important stuff through work and through everyone else. You don't need to be watching the news to kind of keep up to date. To be honest, I've not seen the news for the last, I think, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Apart from, it's really funny, the place that I see the news the most is the block that I go hunting at, because my auntie will often have it on. And so it's like that little bit of negative before I go out and have all the positives of the out in nature. But yeah, I really think looking at your lifestyle as a whole and the diet as a whole is not just the food you eat, but everything that you're consuming. I think that's really important to do.
Absolutely. I think you've nailed it, and certainly improvements that I can make every day. And I'd be surprised that if that can't challenge everybody who's listening to this now, and maybe, looking at themselves in the mirror and making some healthier decisions tomorrow, and really challenge ourselves, because, it's just such a good thing to do. And when you do that, it'll impact your family. It'll impact the people around you as well.
So changing gears a little bit back to the fly program, with obviously COVID being in play for the last 2 years, what has been essentially the workaround for that? Have you still been able to kind of run events, or how's it played out?
Last couple of years, we've actually been pretty fortunate. We in the first year of COVID, it didn't really have a significant impact on our operation. We were able to get people into programs still, just how it aligned. We usually have a short off season during the winter months, and that's when the peak of it on that first round hit Australia. So we had just finished a big block of programs. And obviously this year we will have already started. We start at the start of October with programs, but we're looking at starting again from December. So there has been an interruption, but we're seeing more and more, need in our community, and we're seeing that, our job is a really vital job in our community. Where, post-COVID world, or living with COVID in the world, people have just got this incredible appetite for the outdoors, and also looking after their well-being. So, we only see the future as being very, very busy, and there's some wonderful opportunities with that. You could be a podcast listener right now thinking, well, I wouldn't identify myself as somebody with a mental health challenge or illness in my life. But I've had some struggles over the last 12 months with work, or with family, or whatever circumstances COVID or any external factors have brought to your life. The fly program is for you. What we do in the community for Australian adult men is, we're really focused on that early intervention or prevention space. As I said, we talk about mental fitness, mental fortitude, mental resilience. We need to be working on that before challenges arise. We need to be equipped with these things. And when we're equipped and we've got all the tools, we can face adversity with maturity and with integrity, and with mechanisms that's going to allow us to take it and treat it head on, rather than sort of putting it in the back pocket and hitting the booze, or just remaining absent from our relationships with our wives, with our children, with our parents, with our partners, whoever it may be. Building our skills and our tools and knowledge now. That's really been our focus, and we're seeing a really big uptake. We think the next sort of 2 years is going to be a really, really important time for us in the community.
Yeah, agreed, man. So if someone is listening along and they're like, this sounds really up my alley, how do they actually get involved?
Really, really easy. All you need to do, go to the website. I'm sure there'll be some information on socials where you can connect with that, but just go to flyprogram, all one word, .org.au. And you will see a list of programs there. They're just being updated over the next week or so. So there's going to be a big range of programs there, and just make an inquiry. And that inquiry will come through to our system, and we'll give you all the information that you need to know. And we can go from there. But yeah, we're positioned in the New South Wales Snowies, 2 hours drive from Canberra. So if you're out of state and when COVID borders open, it's pretty easy to get a plane to Canberra and hire a car for a couple of days and get down to us. And it's a pretty easy process. We'll just email us through the inquire now or booking now link, and we'll set you all the information.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something you said before is that you've like connected with all of the other states. I believe have you got programs in other parts of other parts of Australia as well?
Yeah, so we have a number of programs. One is called, our main program is called the Men in Flight program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's focused on Australian male adults in that early intervention prevention-based space. And that's hosted out of the New South Wales Snowies.
Mm-hmm.
We also have another program that's sponsored by Bayer Crop Science, and it's focused on farmers, men and women.
Yeah.
And that's called the Ag Spirit Big Fish Challenge, and we host retreats in Tasmania where we fly participants into all these locations at no expense. Tasmania, we've done programs in Victoria. There's programs that are going to be in WA, Queensland, all over the place. So that's continuing to grow. And we are launching a new program called the Men in Flight 2.0, which is an extension program for anybody who's participated in a program. This program just goes to a whole new level of wilderness, challenging physically, mentally, and emotionally. And a lot of the creature comforts that people may enjoy will be sort of really scaled right away. And it's just, it's an extension on keeping that mindset strong and using, those positive social environments that we build throughout the programs and getting the guys re-engaged with one another again. And once again, keeping that family and that community really active and accountable to one another and to their well-being.
That's awesome. Have you, do you know Mark Devine?
I do know the name, yes.
He runs Seal Fit over in America, and they do a lot of that sort of stuff. It's essentially stripping you of all of the things that you find comfortable and taking you through. Like, they actually have a Hell Week that you can book into, so it's literally like Hell Week for getting into the SEALs. And then they also, obviously, you can if you choose to, you can give up essentially throughout the week as well. But essentially, you're paying for a week of going through what the Navy SEALs kind of have to go through to get into being a Navy SEAL. But then there's actually like mastermind groups that he runs as well. And I'm pretty sure the one that I heard of just recently, it's $100,000 a year. It's for pretty much big businessmen. And they take them out for a week of the wilderness, and it's no phones, I think you get water supplied, or maybe just a water pen just to quickly transfer the water for make sure it's clean. And outside of that, you're pretty much left to your own devices. And I think that sort of stuff is just so cool. I actually was reminded by a guy who's going through all my podcasts just recently. He said, "Hey man, in episode 9, you talked about how you wanted to just be dropped off on an island, and you've just got essentially those things like a knife or a bow or something like that." And I still to this day dream about that. Like, that'd be amazing to do days like that where you kind of left to really fend for yourself and go back to the ancestral ways.
Absolutely. It's been a big growth in our business over the last, particularly, 2 years. Yes, we're a health promotion charity, but one of the sort of financial strategies that we have in our organisation is to generate a lot of corporate work. Mm-hmm. So our corporate work is a fee-for-service work where we replicate our program that we do with participants on a corporate front. And we charge for those services. Yeah. So, the money that's generated through corporate engagement programs or the corporate in-flight programs, we're able to reinvest back into our community programs. And there's just a massive appetite for sort of, I hate the word team building, but essentially, corporate engagement. Yeah. And once again, there's just not a better environment than to do that through experiences where the CEO can be standing next to the first year receptionist. Mm-hmm. And the CEO can see the great leadership qualities that somebody of very, very junior in the business can demonstrate through avenues that are very wild and free. And it's also very good for that young person to see the vulnerability that a CEO has in their workplace as probably the most alienated individual in the whole workplace, because it's very, very difficult to have, friends in an environment where they've got to be running a successful business. So you just see so many different sides of people when all of the temporary stuff is just pulled away and the real stuff exists. And so it's a big part of our program.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so on the corporate front is the exact same if someone wanted to get involved with their business?
Absolutely. Yeah, just probably the best. There's some information there on the website. You can see it, Corporate in Flight, and just a direct email to myself or onto the website at info@flyprogram.org.au or matt.tripet@flyprogram.org.au. We'll be able to give you heaps more information on that.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Well, we're coming up close to the hour, but maybe what would be cool to finish up with is talking a bit more about the bow hunting front of things. When did you get into bow hunting yourself?
Mate, I'm really, really young at it.
Awesome.
Really, 2 years is been my thing. I shoot every day, and probably it's been an incredible process. That one of the participants has actually done a program with me. He's become one of my closest friends. He actually he actually bought me a bow. He said, "I've got a Hoyt RX4 sitting in Abbey Archery in Sydney." And he said, "This is just a thank you for a lot of the things that sort of we've been able to do." And it was, really, really blew me away. I'd been bow hunting before that with a different bow, but obviously this is just a beautiful, beautiful bow. And mate, it's been an incredible story. It was nearly to the day. I shot my first sambar stag with the bow a year ago. We just ate the last of it the night that I shot it the year before. I saved
That's awesome.
some of the backstrap for that, and we shared it with family and friends. And that's certainly been a massive highlight for me. Because there were just so many cases where I was just torn apart by the whole process. I just kept going out. And, I love it. I just absolutely love it. Really, really fortunate to be able to do it a lot. I've got good friends down here, and I head down to the high country of Victoria a bit as well. But, it's such an extraordinary activity to enjoy. As I said, it's just like fly casting. It's very technical if you want to get technical. I shoot long ranges quite regularly in my practice. I want to isolate a lot of the things that I do wrong with my archery and work hard on it. And I think a lot of those little 1%ers that I put in place put me in a position to have a really, really good opportunity at this deer, this sambar stag, and it just, for me, fortunately, it just went like clockwork. Drilled him at 52 yards. He was dead on the ground, and 15 seconds later, kneeled over, and put an arrow through a lung and through the heart, and all systems were all over. So, the days that it's wet, the days that it's rainy, the days that it's you're tired or whatever, are the days that you get out and practice and sling arrows, because they're the days that you learn a lot about yourself. And it's just been such an awesome process. And if there's any listeners out there that sort of aren't into the bow hunting world yet, I just encourage you to give it a go. And it doesn't matter how good or inferior you think your gear might be. The process of getting outside and being disciplined and practicing and spending time in the outdoors with your kids, with your family, with your mates. It's time that's not wasted, investing in people's lives, in your own life. And that's what bow hunting gives us. It's so cool.
Yeah, 100%. Do you want to dive into that story about your sambar a little bit more?
I'd love to. Yeah, sure.
How many trips had you taken actually before this, do you reckon?
Oh, people are going to be a bit horrified. Like around the colder season, sort of in from about March through to October, I'm probably heading out once a week.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm sorry to anybody out there. Really, really privileged with where I live. But I had a really, really hard case where I shot a fallow and a really good fallow deer. It was a solid hit, had a really strong blood trail, but it was a non-retrieval deer. And I just lost it. And then it rained overnight, went back for the blood trail, even took the dog, couldn't find it. And I was just devastated. Like, I was really, really unsettled.
Yeah.
So it was not, it would have been sort of 6 months after that. So that was around March. And this sambar was in September. And I was just going out to knock over a meat animal. And I just went to a different part of the property that was right in the back corner. It was a pretty big effort. And I just came out into a clearing right on the tree line. Wind was perfect. And I just stopped. And in the middle of this clearing was this sambar stag. And it really took my breath away because it was the first time I'd seen a sambar face to face in this region here around Jindabyne. And, I've seen other deer shot, but it was, I was standing sort of 70 yards away from it. And I thought I'd been spooked. Like, he knew I was there. He was quite startled, but he was obviously fairly fired up. So I just stood still and I waited for about 5 minutes and just watched him. He was racking his antlers in the grass, tearing it up, trying to look big and strong and tough, thinking that I was a threat. And over about a 5-minute period, I sort of sidestepped into behind a tree that was about 10 meters in front of me, and put myself in a blind spot between him and I. And I used that space to just range find a bunch of different little bushes and objects around me. And I use a Spot Hog Fast Eddy XL, so I'm on a single pin sight. I'm shooting 74 pounds, so my arrows are moving pretty quick and pretty flat to about sort of 35 yards. So I had my top pin on 35, and that sort of, on 30, and that puts my my bottom marker on that single pin at about 42 yards. And I just stepped out sideways, and I noticed that he is walking into me. So I thought, right, he's right on that sort of 46 yard mark based on a bush that I had on the ground. So I went to full draw, and I just took a very, very slight little step out sideways, and he just turned his shoulders at 46 yards and just slightly quartering to. And I just waited until he opened up. He took a step forwards, which opened up his breadbasket, and just pulled the pin, and I had an illuminated knock on this shot, and I just saw the arrow fly and just bury him straight through the breadbasket. And I just stood still, and he buckled, and he ran literally like 15 meters. And his blood pressure changed. He got wobbly, fell over, and having experience with rifles, I didn't trust a sambar on the ground, so I arrowed him again, but he was dead. And I just remember the feeling, like, I've shot a lot of deer with a rifle, but I just remember the feeling being the top of a hill, stripping myself off to my undies and rolling down the hill down stinging nettles. My skin was just on fire.
Yeah.
And I just had this immense shaking, and what you might see on those Meat Eater episodes where people tear up and all that sort of stuff. Mate, that absolutely happened to me. And it was really, really quite overwhelming. And it was just an experience that, I just want to repeat time and time again. But I think the thing that makes that experience so beautiful, in fact, I'm sorry the listeners can't see this, but
I've been admiring the whole talk. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So that's he wasn't a big deer. He went 21.5, 22 inches on either side. But he fed the family. It was 4 walks out. It was as hard as it possibly could be, and it just made it even more beautiful.
Do you know
if that makes sense?
Oh, 100%. Do you know how much meat you end up getting from him?
Yeah, so I got his back straps, took his rear legs out, took his loins out, and then I was coming back for rib meat and front quarters. So this is my fourth trip back in. I wasn't carrying like a meat hauler bag; it was just a day bag.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually and I didn't have my bow with me. I'd already taken my bow out. There was some wild dogs on it, so they must have been watching me for ages.
Yeah,
yeah, that was sort of, I was just so exhausted. It was pretty much dark.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, those dogs got the front quarters and the rib and neck meat, but we made beautiful, beautiful meals out of that for days on days, and the kids just love it. They just love it. So that was a pretty special experience, and it's certainly my fondest. But the thing that makes it so special are all of those hardships along the way. The amount of times that I said to myself, I failed. They just give you this sense of perspective that just nothing else will. Mm-hmm. And you can translate that into your life as well. Taking those hard paths and the success that comes from difficult paths is just something that is going to give you just this incredible, vivid experience that, doesn't just translate to hunting, but it translates to life. And whether it be working hard on your marriage or it be working hard on your job, it's worth it. Yeah. Do it. So, I just encourage everybody, pick up a bow and start practicing and get lost some way. It's so good.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good place to end it, Matt. So for those listening along, you guys can follow Matt. It's at matt.tripet, Tripet, or at The Fly Program. Both of those on Instagram. I'll have all that in the show notes as well. So, Matt, thank you so much, and thank you for what you do, dude. It's really a really important part of the world, and it's beautiful to see what you guys are actually contributing to society. So thank you.
It's a pleasure, and love to everybody out there. And it's really, really inspiring to know that so many people who love the outdoors like I do and keep working it, keep walking it, and be a part of it and share it with other people. You've got a great legacy that you can leave on the lives of other people by just giving them a phone call, getting their butts in the car and going for a drive and spend some time in the outdoors with a fishing rod, with a bow, with a rifle, with, standing on whatever you're going to do. Just get out there and enjoy it.
Appreciate it.
That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, team. If you did have any topics, questions, or you wanted to suggest a guest for Becoming a Bowhunter, you can send me an email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. If you are enjoying the show or you've enjoyed in particular episodes, please do me a solid and share it around with your friends. If you are not already, please hit the subscribe button, as the more subscribers we get, the higher the podcast gets ranked, and that definitely helps out for showing it to other individuals. If you are not already following me on Instagram, it's at becomingabowhunter.podcast, and on YouTube, it's Becoming a Bowhunter. Get out, team, fling some arrows, get that practice in, and walk those yards in the paddocks until you find those critters. That is it for now, but not the last time that you'll hear from Becoming a Bowhunter.